before we move on from education, I want to touch on this. I think Delaware ranks 45th or 46th in terms of education, and a lot of that is based
on testing scores.
Right. This is what I want to ask you. I go to Northwestern. He obviously does as well, and it's a quote unquote elite institution. I did not get in with test scores. I was blessed by COVID in some way to get in, but I have at Northwestern excelled. And it seems to me that test scores shouldn't be the metric we're using, at least for everybody, because I have done just fine at Northwestern, and I have plenty of friends who got in the same year I did, not applying test scores, and I don't really think it affected academic output. Do you think maybe we have to change how we even judge what a successful education looks like?
We need some metric. We need some tool of assessment. I, as a teacher, felt like testing was like the standardized testing was a terrible form of assessment. I actually took a class when I was in teacher school on assessment. The best assessments not only evaluate your performance, but they also provide the educator and the student with tools to address the shortcomings and enhance the strengths. And I feel like most assessment these days aren't really doing that. There are people who are just bad test takers. There's data that shows it. People who are and have been extraordinarily successful Americans, right, who've gone through and just been horrendous at testing. I remember I had a kid, I don't know if he's still out there, Rand Hudson in elementary school. Whenever we had standardized tests, he would take the bubbles and he'd like draw pictures with it. He would be done. Like we'd have a 2-hour standardized test. In 7 minutes, he'd be like, all done. And he passed it in. And I'm always like, Rand, what are you doing? He's like, it doesn't matter. I'm like, Rand, you're going to like fail. You're going to repeat 4th grade. He's like, whatever. It doesn't matter. And Rand always did fine. He was in all these like special core classes. And I don't think he was special. I don't know how he's doing now, but he was actually a really smart kid.
On Randy,
like almost like outsmarted it. He was like a philosopher in 4th grade. Like,
wow.
We don't need this stuff. I think there's got to be a metric. There's got to be a way for us system-wide to say this school is working or not working. I don't think test scores are the end-all, be-all. I think there are some creative assessments out there. I think the best assessment is a portfolio-based assessment where you, in the course of a marketing period, a semester, a year, put together a portfolio of your work. And a teacher, or traditionally, if you go back to the 19th century, you have a community of elders or leaders or adults who assess that portfolio and say, here's where you're doing well, and here's where you need to do work. That's very hard to scale up. That's very hard to do in a system in Delaware. We have something like 135,000 students. But things like that, as governor, I'm certainly open to experimenting and piloting programs like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to do in a nation of 350 million. I feel like you need some form of standardization. And I don't know that testing is the right way to do that, but I don't know that there's another easier way. And I think
what does it really matter if there's no standardization? You know who it makes it a nightmare for is Northwestern admissions officers.
For sure.
Sure. I was reading some stuff recently, very interesting, and you guys may already know this, but it probably was 4 or 5 years ago, there was a big backlash against standardized testing. Maybe it was more like 10 years ago, where a number of elite schools, I don't know if Northwestern did it, they said standardized testing is no longer a requirement. If you don't take the SAT, you don't take the ACT, you can still get in here. And what they found years later is that actually standardized testing, which they thought were very biased, actually they were biased, but they had less bias than when you take away testing. How else are you going to judge it except your biases? Your biases about what schools are good and bad, what the quality of classes people are taking, et cetera, et cetera.